So the approach that I wanted to take now is to look at a much bigger data set than what's currently available through any tool that I currently use. And I subscribe to a bunch of different tools that are on the market. Some of the advanced ones that, that are, $500 to $1,000 per month just in order to get, some market share data, and they don't go far enough, right? And so it was always frustrating to me because I'm like, I know that there's more data here that we can get. And so we took a big data approach and um, came up with a way to essentially not only scrape data, but also pull together data from multiple sources, APIs, reports, Amazon's own site, search results, in order to collect so much data that we could then use what the technology that was now available. I'm not talking about large language models like ChatGPT. I'm talking about just machine learning in general, artificial intelligence approach, and using machine learning to analyze a large amount of data that would have taken, a team of people thousands of hours in order to analyze themselves. It's not practical to do it that way.
Sure.
You're not going to have, you're not going to have. I actually calculated so like it would take the average brand working for a single product niche. They would need at least 30, I think it was like 32 full-time employees analyzing the data every single month in order to stay on top of it. Who's going to do that?
No,
I don't
that's
have that
very
kind of money to throw at a team just to do analysis, right? So it needed the technology to catch up. And so we've gotten to the point now where we can collect a large amount of data and not just analyze the data by itself, but then combine different elements of that data. An example on that would be if we look at a specific product niche, what we feed to the machine learning model is approximately 20 to 30 million data points about a single product niche, right? A single subcategory. And the system, because looking at that much data, it can see patterns that we wouldn't normally see as humans. We might have I kind of think that it's like, price seems like it works better in this, price adjustment seems to work better in this category. We have some of our own observations. But what we found is that analyzing the big data, we could figure out where, how A9 weights 15 to 20 different ranking factors that it looks at on a product, performance, content, a number of things for each subcategory, and determine where A9 thinks one thing is more important than the next. I had always assumed that it was the same kind of algorithm applied to all of the subcategories. Same rules apply. Just need this X amount of unit sales velocity. Helium 10's got their, what is it, the CR8 or whatever it is, that says like, hey, this is how many,
CPR quality. Yeah.
yeah, this is how many product you need to give away in order to rank well.
Yes.
Problem with those, if we circle back around to that particular method of if I give away a bunch of product, yes, it worked just as the service said it would that I paid. I was able to get on page one. And 4 weeks later, that thing's not on page one anymore. It slid right back down again.
Yeah.
And we tell ourselves, well, that's because my conversion rate wasn't high enough. Or we tell ourselves, I wasn't running advertising aggressively. I wasn't paying enough into advertising to keep it up there. The idea was always that it should stick the landing. It should stay there once we get there. But the reality is that you gamed one of 15 different factors. And when you stopped gaming that one aspect, that one factor, you normalized again.
Music
A9
stops.
looked at the rest of your 14 factors and said, you're not good enough to
Yeah.
be in page one, let alone top five.
Well, it's called the moving average, right? So everything
Right.
is, so it may get you there. If I mean, let's look at it this way. What is CPR, first of all? CPR is the number of uh, orders you
Yeah.
need to take for getting on page one for that particular keyword over how long?
Yeah, I think it's like per day across 8 days, I think.
8 days.
Yeah.
Not per day, not so many,
I think it's
whatever
per
the
day
number is.
across like 8 days, but I think that number has changed a little bit. So I don't normally actually use
Yeah,
CPR, but
my understanding is how many in total you're supposed to give away
right.
over a period of 8 days. And if you do that, then within 2 weeks, you are going to be on page one.
Correct.
So what does that mean? Let's take X number, let's say 35 pieces, it says. 35 divided by 8 is about 4 or 5 a day. So if you sell 4 or 5 a day every day, of course, you're not going to sell four every day. You're going to
Right.
sell one, two, three, four, maybe five, five, six, six, whatever. Then it's going to go. So what does that tell you? Your order velocity or your sales velocity is averaging 4 a day.
Correct.
If
Yeah.
you drop that just after you get it, then you're done, right? So you are out of the picture. So that's the easiest way for people to understand how reliable this is. So
Right.
you obviously are going way beyond that, but so anyway, keep going. So when
No,
I heard,
I
I
mean, you're
always
definitely
get,
onto something that is absolutely correct, and that is, the philosophy or the normal practice, I should say, in the industry is, well, you need to test it. You
yes,
need to, if you're going to take an if you're going to create a solo advertising campaign, solo single word keyword campaign all by itself, and you're adjusting things like placement and which bidding strategy you're using, and you're jacking up the bids and all this kind of stuff. You're doing all these things in order to increase the visibility and the sales velocity. So you maximize the sales velocity. Search term impression share report comes back and says, yeah, you're number one, as far as search rank for this term. Cool. This is the most that I can do. Why is it not enough? Because first of all, you don't know how many units you need to beat your next competitor, let alone your whole competitive set, right? Within your subcategory. And two, you don't know what else that Amazon is judging in its A9 algorithm about your listing and its performance. Because you could be in a commodity product where A9 is looking at price more closely and will weight price 20%, and 20% is generally the highest that any one factor will get. Once in a while we see like a 30 or 40%, usually around unit sales velocity. In those situations, gaining that unit sales velocity will work temporarily. But again, it may be only 20, 30% of the total picture. And if you're weak on the rest of those factors, that could be, is uh your content, aligned? In other words, is your title similar to what search term you're going after? There's a whole there's a whole rabbit hole we could go down as far as like just as far as like content optimization when it comes to similarity, relevance, proximity, density, all these kind of extra terms that can be bolted on in order to explain different intricacies about how content is analyzed and weighted and valued by A9. But ultimately, you've got things like your title, your bullet points, your description, your hidden classic description, your visible A plus description, your back end, alt text keywords, your back end generic keywords or additional search terms in the back. What images that Amazon is able to translate and say this means this thing, in the images. Um, and so uh, we can look at and all like the specs, like made in China, weighs X amount of dollars, weighs X amount of pounds, whatever. It's looking at a lot of these different factors, and it's also looking at things as far as like, okay, how many reviews do you have relative to your competition? What is your average product rating relative to your competition? What's your price relative to competition? Are you FBA Prime? Are you do you have inventory in the warehouse that's closest to the consumer that's shopping right now?